Okay, so let's talk about the past 2 years of my life because a lot of crazy things have been happening. Hello, if you're new here, welcome to my YouTube channel. Before you go through it, my name is Ashley and this YouTube channel is here to help you feel like you know what to expect before you go through a crazy life experience that might not be covered very well by the internet. This specific series that I'm starting is called Before You Go Through It, Vestibulodynia. If you're a dude, I don't even know how to say this. I'm trying to figure out a good way to say this. If you're a guy, I'm going to be talking about a lot of female issues and female body parts. So please don't be creepy about it and don't be weird about it. And if you're not interested in this content, just move along. And if you're a girl's girl, then I'm really counting on you to report the creeps in the comment section if there are any that show up for some reason. Sorry to any guy friends of mine that are following this that were probably hoping for better content or something different for them, but this is a little bit more geared toward the females. You are more than welcome to stay and watch if you want to. I think it's going to be pretty educational and it's going to be very much medically spoken about, so I'm not going to be weird about it, but I am going to be very transparent about my experience and very honest. I'm not going to sugarcoat a lot of things. You're more than welcome to stay if you want to learn, especially if you happen to be a guy that has a lot of female friends. Either, you have a sister or a friend, or you're a husband that has a wife and you happen to come across this video. If there's anything here that resonates with a female that you know, please tell them. This is definitely something that is not covered at all on the internet. It's starting to, but it's very new of an issue, and I'm going to get into that. That's kind of foreshadowing into what I'm going to be talking about. Yeah, so I'm just going to tell you about my experience. My credentials to talk about this issue is that I was diagnosed in late 2025 with acquired neuroproliferative vestibulodynia. That's a mouthful, I know. I'm just going to keep saying vestibulodynia instead because that is a mouthful of a diagnosis, so I'm not going to keep repeating that long mouthful every single time I mention my diagnosis name. I was diagnosed in 2025. However, I was dealing with these issues since 2024, May of 2024. Currently, as of now, from this standpoint, I am actually, oh my gosh, literally on this day today, I am 12 weeks post-op from my vestibulectomy. I had a vestibulectomy in March. Now I'm recovering, and I'm recovering well, and I'm doing great. Obviously, I'm not gonna say right now that I'm like, wow, everything completely disappeared and I'm completely pain-free, but I'm definitely making my way toward that trajectory. I'm in that journey right now of pelvic floor therapy, and that's currently where I'm in right now in the process of healing. Now I'm hoping to make some videos covering stuff that's in the past tense of things that have already happened with my diagnosing journey and my surgery, but then also catch you up enough so then you can still join me right now in my current process of pelvic floor therapy and healing from my vestibulodynia. That's kind of the spiel. So now let's get into the story of how this all went down. May of 2024, it was the week of my wedding. Yes, you can take a moment to be like, oh my gosh, that sucks. Yes, it definitely did. The week of my wedding, first of all, I was on my period. I actually ended my period right before my wedding day, so I got really lucky there, but I was on my period the days leading up to the actual wedding day. I got married 2 weeks after I graduated from college, and so in those 2 weeks of preparation for the wedding and all of those life things, I was living back at home. I was using my parents' shower and my family's products. So the culprit that came was I was showering in my brother's bathroom. I didn't do anything crazy where I did anything completely different or new. I put on some body wash, and I'm going to probably put the picture of the body wash in a second. As I usually do, washed my body. I used the Dial, literally 99-cent store, so like drugstore brand body wash. I don't know how long it had been there. I don't know if body wash expires, but I could have sworn I saw an expiration date, and I know that it's more about the effectiveness of the body wash kind of goes down when something expires, so it's not really like it becomes dangerous. It was already past the date that was on the bottle. I realized after the fact, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it had already gone past that date, whatever I saw. Lo and behold, I started burning so bad down there. I'm just gonna be so real right now, but I don't know if you as a girl have ever accidentally put on shampoo or just something that didn't really sit right in your hoo-ha, and you basically were washing down there and then something didn't really sit right there, or maybe you brain farted and you accidentally put shampoo down there or something, and it gets into the vulva and you're like, oh my gosh, this burns so bad. It has happened to me before, 1 or 2 times in my life that I can recall, where I put on something that did not agree with my vulva and burned really bad. However, the very next day at the latest, or a couple of hours later, it would go away and it would calm down. And so when this happened, of course, I was like, oh my gosh, this burned so bad. But then when I got out of the shower, I kind of just kept trying to go on with my day, because I thought to myself, oh, this has happened to me once or twice before. It's nothing new. This is obviously going to go away, right? Plot twist, I was not right. I was wrong. And this is something that my naturopathic doctor that I saw later in my diagnosis journey kind of explained to me. Her guess was that because of me being in the luteal phase, PMSing very close to my period, there's pH changes down there. And so she was saying that it created a perfect storm in which my wonky changing pH mixed with this horrible body wash that totally probably nuked my microbiome down there at the same time, all caused the perfect storm so that I would develop a BV. And BV, by the way, means bacterial vaginosis. My experience was that I had never gotten a yeast infection, bacterial vaginosis, a UTI even. I've never had any of those things in my life. And so this is my first time having something like this. After I got out of the shower, hours passed, the next day came, whatever, time went on. I want to say my wedding was on a Saturday. I want to say that this was like a Monday or a Tuesday, somewhere in there during the week that was leading up to the wedding day. I was kind of waiting for it to pass. The next day, it did not go away. The burning did not go away. It still kind of stuck there. My period then literally started the next day. I was pretty uncomfortable. I kind of thought maybe my period just made me a little bit more sensitive and I just needed more time to bounce back from this body wash that threw off everything. It came to the night before my wedding. I was still kind of burning, but my period had ended. My period ended the day before the wedding day. And so the burning was still pretty much present and I was still pretty uncomfortable, kind of like the raw skin feeling. And if you're someone who does have vestibulodynia or even vulvodynia, you probably kind of relate to the sensations of the stabbing, the burning, and the raw skin type feeling. If you're seeing this as someone who doesn't have this condition, or if you're a dude and you're like, that sounds awful, yes, it is awful. I wake up the next morning for the wedding day. My wedding day was beautiful, by the way. Thankfully, this issue was still a little bit more background in my head and I was a little bit uncomfortable, but I was able to tune it out. And my wedding day was amazing. I still to this day say it was the best day of my life. But then came the wedding night. Personally, I am a Christian, so I saved myself for marriage. I had not had intercourse before my wedding day. I did have hard moments in my life with past relationships, previous exes, and all the things. I, in the past, had been able to insert things. I didn't have any issues before. Definitely very different than post developing this issue, where then I couldn't get even the smallest thing in because it burned so bad. I was still super uncomfortable and I was burning and the burning was still there. And God bless my husband. Obviously, he was very much not going to push me to do anything that I wasn't comfortable doing. And he was very much super patient with me. But we basically couldn't do anything on the wedding night because I was still in pain. And that's when I became way more aware of it. And that's when I kind of realized too that I have, so in the vestibulodynia categories of pain, I guess you could say, people will ask if you have unprovoked pain or provoked pain. And so I started noticing that I had a dull unprovoked pain, but my provoked pain was really bad. And so obviously this was a situation in which my vestibule was provoked. More to say later on what is the vestibule and all the things when I talk about my diagnosis. We were just kind of like, okay, well, you know, we're just going to go to our honeymoon the next day. And again, like I was just kind of like, oh, this is a little weird. It'll pass. So I wasn't really stressed or worried about it. And I just thought that my body just needed more time. I had just finished up my period. I was still sensitive. I don't know. I just thought something weird is going on. The other thing I had noticed too on the actual night too was that I smelled a little bit different than usual. It was slowly developing into the fishy smell of BV. So that was also my indicator for me knowing that I had BV, even though I hadn't had it before. I started developing a different smell. That's how it was the night of the wedding. But then the next morning, I woke up and that's when I had the brown discharge and weird looking discharge too, that I was like, okay, like I already finished up my period. It had a day. This wasn't even spotting because I had finished up my period. I know I said the day before the wedding, but I finished it the Thursday before the wedding day. So I had a day in between where my underwear was perfectly fine and clear. So I was way past done with my period, but I had some light bleeding and had some weird discharge at the same time. And then I thought my period for some reason was restarting. I didn't really know what was going on. When I woke up and I was going to the bathroom, that's when I really noticed the weird fishy smell of BV, the classic smell of BV that if you've had BV before, you know what I'm talking about. Me being a newlywed, oh my gosh, again, God bless my husband. But my husband, also a new husband himself, is dealing with his wife having a BV. He also saved himself for marriage. So poor guy is getting this full, like, welcome to the female body experience with me. And is learning a lot about the female body all at once as a brand new husband. We didn't have time to really assess what was going on because we had a flight to catch. We had our honeymoon flight to go to Hawaii already the next morning after our wedding day. Pulled up my pants and I was like, okay, well, we gotta go now. And so we packed up all our stuff. We packed up our luggage. We left the hotel. We got to the airport. And then I ended up needing to go to the bathroom again. At this point, my burning got way worse. I definitely had so much more unprovoked pain. And it was really, really bad. It was definitely becoming way more noticeable and it was so uncomfortable. And so I went to the bathroom because I needed to pee and I had a little bit more bleeding. And so I had to literally put on a panty liner because the bleeding was enough that I was like, okay, I need to put on a panty liner. And oh my gosh, let me tell you, that flight absolutely sucked. First of all, we got separated. That really sucked. And we were flying to Hawaii from San Diego, which is a 5 or 6 hour flight. I'm here having to sit separated from my husband and burning so bad that I had to sit on a plane and sit still on a plane. Thankfully, my husband was sitting in the seat in front of me, and so I kind of stuck my hand through the little slot between the window and I kind of held his hand through the hair. But oh my gosh, I was burning so bad. The first thing we did when we landed in Maui was buy an ice pack. Thankfully, the ice pack actually did help. I had like a gel, malleable, moldable ice pack, and so I was able to sit on it and it was comfortable, and it did help a lot actually to relieve some of the burning symptoms and at least kind of bring like a cooling effect. So that really helped. But I was like, this is so annoying. Like, I'm not going to be going throughout my whole honeymoon with an ice pack on my hoo-ha. We got to our place, we settled in, we got all our stuff, and then I immediately went to my phone, started researching what the heck to do. At the time, I was worried because I had Medi-Cal, which is like the government health insurance basically in California. But for some reason, I didn't know if it was going to work in Hawaii. I don't know. We were newlyweds and I did not want to rack up a whole entire $300, $400 fee or charge for urgent care. I just started doing my own research instead because I thought, you know what, I'm going to go see an OB when I get back. But for now, I need to just get this dealt with right now. I ended up concluding and treating it as if I had a BV. I started researching products. I'm more holistic. I don't hate conventional medicine. Let me just say that. I thought to myself, okay, if I'm not really 100% sure if I have a BV, I'm not going to overly medicate myself when I'm not 100% sure. I stumbled across FemiClear. I got the FemiClear bacterial vaginosis treatment. It's an ointment. The ingredients are super clean. There was nothing wrong with it. The ingredients are very much just aloe vera and all of these other things, very much natural. There's not a single pharmaceutical ingredient in FemiClear. Later that night, I applied it, and let me tell you, the reviews that say that the burning is really, really bad on the FemiClear, they're not wrong. It's awful. But God bless my husband. Poor man. Again, brand new husband with his new wife. I'm laying here on the bed. This is only the first full day that we're married. And I'm laying here on the bed with this ointment that I had to apply with an applicator, and it burned so unbelievably bad. I was so close to washing it out, but I was trying to push through because I wanted it to work and take away my BV. And it's so funny because the box is like, oh, it only burns a little bit. And, you know, that's just kind of like the side effect. And no, it was not a little bit. I got my ice pack bag. I put it on. I was crying and I was over here like, oh my gosh, let me just get through this. And mind you, it's not one, but two treatments of this ointment. Eventually it did chill out. It was fine. And it kind of just sat there and I slept overnight with the ointment on. And then when I woke up the next day, I actually felt a little bit better. I started to at least see the BV symptoms start to already chill out a lot. And so I thought, okay, I definitely should do the second treatment. I did the second treatment. Again, I don't know if I just thought, oh, it's not going to be that bad because I did it once and it's supposed to get easier the second time, right? It didn't burn as bad, but it was like a 10 out of 10 pain level instead of like 50 out of 10. I did the second treatment the second night that we were in Hawaii. And then when I woke up the next morning, my discharge was completely gone. My odor was completely gone. So all the BV symptoms disappeared. And I will say the burning at a baseline, my baseline burning kind of went down a little bit and it was more dull, and it went back to like that second day after the body wash incident burning where it was pretty dull. And so it went back down. And so part of it probably was that the BV was also, I know BV causes burning and itching and stuff. So part of it was probably super aggravated because of the burning of the BV. But once the BV got taken out of the equation, there was still some burning. And that part really sucked. And that's when the journey really began. So my BV was gone, but I was still left with burning. And the burning was super dull when I was not provoked and when I was not touching the area. So I thought that it had basically almost gone away. I was feeling a little bit more hopeful. I thought it was going to decrease from there and I thought it was going to be gone until we tried intercourse again. Things did not work out. And this time I felt like the blocking pressure kind of sensation that a lot of people at Vestibulodynia say, that they felt like there was a wall. From then on, I was getting really frustrated and so discouraged because I was literally a newlywed on my honeymoon, wanting to connect with my husband in this way, and I just couldn't. And that really, really sucked. After a certain amount of attempts and stuff, we kind of just stopped trying to have intercourse. We came to the conclusion that this was only making me feel so miserable and so much more hopeless and disappointed and so many negative emotions, and we really wanted to enjoy our honeymoon. Praise the Lord, we definitely still made the most of it. We got to focus more on the emotional intimacy and getting close together and getting to know each other in a different way as husband and wife in a different context where now we're finally on our own. And of course we were on our honeymoon, so there were so many other things to enjoy. So thankfully we were still able to enjoy and do all of our excursions we had planned. I still very much felt like I went on a honeymoon and had a whole vacation, right? So it wasn't ruined, and I think it was really healthy that we decided to just pause. I decided, you know what, I'm going to schedule an appointment with the OB for when I get back. But for now, I'm just going to kind of put this on the back burner. I'm going to enjoy the fact that I'm a newlywed, that I'm married now, and I'm going to enjoy time with my husband and do all these fun things with him on a honeymoon, you know, because what more could I have done? There was nothing I could have done for what was going on, because I thought, you know what, I haven't seen a doctor for it yet. I'm going to wait until I get back. It'll get sorted. It's okay. I'm just not going to think about it until I come back from the honeymoon. We get back from the honeymoon, and so then I go to the OB and she examines me. So traumatizing in and of itself. She was very nice. I was telling her about my symptoms. I told her this whole spiel I told you guys. I told her about how my symptoms for BV are gone, but I just want to make sure that I'm still okay and all the things. She had to swab me to test me for the yeast infection stuff, BV, all of these other, you know, bacteria infection things. And oh my gosh, again, another traumatizing moment in the journey, because that swab burned so bad. She was like, I have to make sure you're healthy and you're okay, you know. So at that point, it made sense to me that they had to swab me. I wanted to make sure that there was no active infection or anything serious like that. And so it was something I had to do to make sure I was healthy and okay. They sent my swab to the lab, and lo and behold, the news that we never want to hear when we're trying to find out what is wrong with us. Everything came back clear. Ugh. When I had told her about the whole story, including the body wash irritation, Her first theory was, okay, so maybe the tissues are just inflamed or something. She thought, okay, maybe this is a tissue issue. So she prescribed a steroid cream, a topical steroid cream to put on the entrance of the vagina. I had applied the cream and it did burn, not the actual cream itself, but just the process of applying and touching hurt really bad and was provoking me. But I thought, you know what, this is gonna help, it's gonna be fine. She told me to do it for 14 days because steroid creams, fun fact, if you ever get prescribed a steroid cream, they do weaken the tissues, and so you're not supposed to use it for more than 14 days. I did it for the 14 days. I came back and I said this did not help. I had made another appointment. I couldn't get the same girl that I got this other girl. She was not so patient with me, unfortunately. She was the one that was available, and I just needed to be seen soon. Then she decided to swab me again. And, it was so frustrating because I already just mentioned a couple seconds ago how traumatizing and painful and horrifying it was. The last OB did not use a speculum on me because, she was like, you're already in so much pain, I'm just going to do the swab. This OB decided, even though it was the smallest size, to try to use a speculum. And if you have vestibulodynia, you know that even the smallest speculum size, it burned so bad. It did not even make it in. It was burning so bad. And I felt like she was just trying to push past the wall feeling. And it was awful. It was truly horrible. I hated the experience. I literally was pulling back. I couldn't do it. I could not do this swab. I couldn't do this test. I think she kind of sort of got the swab in. She got enough to be able to test, but oh my gosh. And all she said, I remember she kept trying to put in the speculum and the swab, and I was clearly so uncomfortable. I was about to cry, and I was pulling back so hard. And I kept saying it hurt so bad. And she was like, I understand. And just kept trying anyway. I'm like, girl, no, you don't understand. Because if you did understand, you would have said, okay, that's enough. This is not going to work. But no, she kept trying anyway. So frustrating. Real talk. Unfortunately, if you are a woman that is dealing with this issue too, or if you're on the journey right now, I really hope you find this video, by the way, if you are on the journey to a diagnosis, because, oh my gosh, the invalidation and the pure ignoring that we get when we try to get a diagnosis for these things is so frustrating. It makes me so mad. That's a whole other conversation for another time. Homegirl basically was like, oh, if it hurts that bad, then I'm just gonna prescribe you stuff for a yeast infection. That's literally, that was her reasoning. And I thought, girl, oh my gosh, like, this is so like dismissive, and I don't know. It was just so frustrating. And yeah, so then I got sent home with yeast infection medication. It was like a 1-day course kind of thing. I don't know. It was like a pill. Oh my gosh. It was not a monostat. Side note, if you ever get prescribed a monostat for anything, please do not use it. Please, please, please do not use it. I will get to that in a second. Okay. Because, oh my gosh, please do not use it. She gave me a pill. And so I took that. It did not do anything. Obviously, the results came back. You guessed it. This is where you say clear. Yes, they came back clear. Everything is negative. It's all good. It's not all good, ma'am. I'm still burning so bad and literally can't wipe myself after I pee because it burned. Not only did she send me home with a pill for a yeast infection, she also sent me home with instructions to continue the steroid cream that's only supposed to be used for 14 days. When I got those instructions, that was the turning point for me. When I got those instructions, I thought, oh my gosh, even I know I shouldn't be using this for this long. I thought these people are so incompetent, not because they're bad people, but just the lack of education about this it's very real. Timeline wise, by the way, this was all in the span of June through July was the OB era of me trying to figure this out with an OB provider. But after that point, I gave up on the OB. I turned my back on the OB office at the time. I didn't even try to go to another OB because my instinct and my hunch was, I don't think they understand or even have education on what I'm going through. I didn't really know at the time how much that would be true, but it's very, very true now. I was doing my own thing and trying to figure out stuff on my own. I kept doing a ton of research. I was figuring out different theories, different issues. I was doing pelvic floor exercises because I thought maybe I have a tight pelvic floor. I was trying different topical things. I was trying all kinds of random things and nothing was working. And so I hit a point that period for sure was so dark. Okay, I'm being very dramatic, but that period for sure was very hopeless. It was very miserable, honestly. I was so sad and so frustrated because I thought I've been married for a couple months and I still have not been able to really do anything with my husband. Not that intercourse is everything, but man, it really sucked to be married and not be able to connect with your spouse that way. I thought, nobody's ever going to diagnose me. I'm going to live this way for the rest of my life. I kept saying things like my body's broken. It was so sad, honestly, that to be feeling that way. And like, just thinking about that, I would never wish that on anybody. And that's why I'm making these videos. I really hope that if you are someone who is in the process of finding that diagnosis and you are in that headspace where I was at, I would not wish that on anybody. And I really hope you find this video because I really, really hope it gives you some answers. Oh my gosh. But it's a different type of pain and struggle to literally be left suffering and not have a name for it or any idea what is going on. So then comes the next year, 2025. The beginning of 2025, I had started talking to a friend who was dealing with some acne things and was telling me about her naturopathic doctor that she saw. And I had asked her about it. For some reason, it came to mind. I don't know why I thought of this friend or this situation, but I thought of my friend from college that had acne and saw a more holistic provider for it. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like I should totally text her and see who she saw, and maybe this could be a lead for me and figuring out what's going on with me. Because by this point, I was definitely so frustrated with symptom management. I'm sure everyone has had some sort of experience like that where they feel like their symptoms were being managed, but nobody was figuring out the root cause or what was actually happening. And I looked up this doctor and she had come from a clinic. A ton of naturopathic doctors work at this practice. It was a holistic practice, basically. This doctor that she saw had left already, but because I looked up the doctor that she brought up that helped her with her acne, it traced her back to the holistic practice that I ended up finding. By the way, if you're in the San Diego area, it's called Nourish Medical Center. I highly recommend that you see them for things in general. If you're dealing with any sort of issue, this is not sponsored by them. If you're dealing with any sort of issue that is chronic or something where you feel like you're getting treated for the symptoms and you're not treating the root cause or identifying the root cause, I highly recommend going to Nourish Medical Center because that is totally their entire practice. I scheduled an appointment with one of the doctors that had really, really good reviews. The unfortunate part about the healthcare system right now in America and insurance and all that stuff is that insurance does not cover naturopathic doctors. And so that was really frustrating. But at this point, my husband and I were like, we need to try everything that we possibly can to get answers. It was so worth it to go to this office. So I saw Dr. Starr. That's who I saw specifically, by the way, if you end up going to Nourish Medical Center. But I saw Dr. Starr Ramson. I told her my whole story. It was literally an hour-long phone call. Let me tell you, that's why I really appreciated the naturopathic sphere because they actually can give you a lot of time to explain your issues and for you to have space to tell your story. She very much was so humble. And again, like I really appreciate that about Nourish Medical Center, but she was so humble and said, you know, I don't know exactly off the top of my head what is going on. Let me do my research and let me consult with my colleagues and let's figure out what's going on. Her first theory was kind of there. It was almost there. She was so close. She was very close, almost hit the nail on the head. She had talked about mast cells, but mast cells in the layman's terms, your mast cells release a lot of stuff basically for healing, basically, when something happens to you. She gave me the example of when you cut your hand. When you cut your hand, what do you deal with? You deal with swelling, right? You deal with swelling and inflammation, and that's kind of the first healing phase. And so she was saying that the mast cells are released, I think from the femur is what she said. The mast cells are basically released from somewhere in your body to arrive at the scene. Essentially like damage control. They're responsible for making sure you don't develop an infection and all the different things, which is why there's swelling and inflammation is because there's a lot of fighting going on, if you will, on the site of your injury. They're supposed to go back when they're done. I kind of describe them as like an army fighting something, right? They're supposed to retreat and go back to their original location, and you should be all patched up and good to go, right? In the area where the mast cells were fixing or addressing an issue. She was super close, but just shy of the mark. But in the hand example, they're supposed to retreat back, but sometimes she said they don't leave when they're supposed to. If they don't leave when they're supposed to, they are still releasing all the things that they do when they're healing something. So they're still causing inflammation, right? And there's almost like collateral damage when you're healing from something. There's inflammation and swelling when you get injured, and it seems counterintuitive that your body would induce that, but obviously it's to prevent infections and all the different things, right? It has a purpose. If mast cells don't leave and they're still fixing a problem, but if the problem doesn't exist anymore, your body is basically causing collateral damage for no reason at all. Mast cells, if they don't leave an area, will still be releasing the white blood cells, the histamine response, all of the different things that cause swelling and inflammation and all sorts of symptoms that usually, if there is an issue, are helpful because they prevent infection. But if there's not an issue, you can probably conclude why it would be a problem if the mast cells are still there. She decided to address histamine. That was her angle first. And so she had given me some supplements, some natural supplements. It was called Histoleaf, which was a naturally occurring antihistamine supplement. And then she had also sent an order to a compounding pharmacy to give me a cream that had a couple of goodies in there, but also had an antihistamine component there because there are histamine receptors in the vulva. And so she was kind of treating it internally in my body. She was treating it internally in my body with the antihistamine supplements, and then was also treating it externally with the tissue for the histamine receptors with the topical compounded ointment. And so we did that for a little bit. We did that for like 3 months. I came back and I said, this isn't working. She, like I said, is awesome. She's so humble. And she said, if it's not working, then we didn't find the solution and we got to move on to something else. We moved on. We said, okay, what could be something else that's going on? So I'm getting closer and closer to my diagnosis now. She thought of a friend that she has that is a pelvic floor therapist. When we had talked about, what else could be going on, she just said, I just want to rule out some pelvic floor things, other, interconnected areas down there. So she said, let's just rule it out at least. So she said, I'm going to refer you to my PT friend, my pelvic floor therapist friend that specializes in complex cases, is what she had told me. And so I said, okay, let's do that, right? I'm like, it doesn't hurt to try. I just need to rule out what's going on. By the way, just so you guys know, again, if you're in San Diego, this was with SheFit pelvic floor physical therapy. This specific person I saw, her name is Jandra Mueller. Again, this is a more holistic provider, so she was also out of pocket for me, but again, so priceless and worth it because I walked in, I filled in all of my intake forms, and I had to do it the day before because they were very extensive. Just like with Nourish Medical Center, they get your whole story, all of your issues from childhood to adulthood. I showed up to my appointment, I got called in, I sat down with Jandra. She sits in front of me and goes, I might not even have to do an internal examination because I think I know exactly what you have. It was crazy. I said, oh my gosh, are you serious? But she was like, okay, I'm going to give you some education, which is why I love her so much. She's a very big educational provider who loves to educate her patients. This is what I had learned from my appointment. So let me tell you, listen up, people. It's very important. Even if you don't have vestibulodynia, this section is for sure for you. This is so funny. She has a crochet anatomy thing of the female genitalia. When people say to not put soap in the vagina, I always thought it was internally in the actual vagina because I had, anatomically correct information, I thought, in my head. She was like, it's not your fault because everyone calls everything the vagina. Nobody knows the anatomically correct stuff. She goes, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying when you wash your body, you're not supposed to put soap on anything else except for where hair grows. And that makes so much sense. But for some reason, I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't anybody actually explain that to me? I had been putting soap in my vulva too because I just was told to not douche and to not put soap inside the vagina. And so I was like, I'm doing that. So I don't understand what went wrong. She said, no, it's because the vulva is so delicate with the tissue that you can't even put soap there either. Just water. Please, totally remember this, even if you don't have vestibulodynia. If you're watching this as someone who doesn't have vestibulodynia and you're going, this sounds like a horrible condition, how do I avoid it? This is how you avoid it. Do not put soap or anything in the vulva. Only stuff where hair grows. So literally only where there is pubic hair. That is the only spot that can tolerate soap. She was even ranting because she said, it's so annoying because it's so misleading and frustrating because there's aisles upon aisles of products that are vaginal soaps and all of these different things, and it's just not good. It's not right. Dude, like, petition to get these things removed. My phone died, so I have to keep going without my mic. She said, look, I'm not going to officially diagnose you. I'm going to send you to the person who can officially diagnose you. But I'm pretty confident that you have acquired neuroproliferative vestibulodynia. When she gave me my diagnosis for vestibulodynia, she basically sat me down on the table to examine me. She said she wasn't going to go internally. She just was going to show me the vulva and the vestibule. Looking into that labia minora border and everything inside, the entire vestibule, okay? And also in the labia minora, the urethra is up here, the clitoris and the urethra. And so the urethra is kind of sharing that border too. So the urethra actually gets referred pain too if you have issues in the vestibule. And so my symptoms for myself were burning, stabbing pain, the raw skin feeling. I felt it all throughout my entire vestibule, and I had referred pain to the outside of my urethra. So I knew it wasn't a UTI or any bladder issues because it didn't feel deep, and I didn't have urinary issues, but I did feel burning when I peed. And oh my gosh, it sucked because I couldn't get it treated as a UTI, so it's not like I could manage the symptoms that way. I had some burning whenever I start my stream of pee, I felt burning. And so that outside, like, fleshy part of the urethra was also impacted by this condition for me personally in my story. And so I had burning when I peed, and that was when I was trying to explain all of that to previous providers, and they were scratching their heads going, like, you don't have a UTI. I don't really understand what's going on. Once she gave me a tour of my anatomy with a little handheld mirror, it was so helpful because I feel like we see a lot of diagrams and different pictures and things of the female anatomy, but then to see that translated into your own individualized body was really cool. So I really love her for that. And so she kind of showed me around the vestibule where my vestibule is and explained all these things. So she showed me the vestibule. This part, she was like hovering with the Q-tip. And she said, I'm not going to touch it yet. But she's like, I'm just telling you that this part right here is probably going to burn so bad when I touch it with the Q-tip because of what I think you have. I was like, oh gosh, okay, like, great, thanks. She actually didn't go inside at all. She said, let me give you a foreshadow of how they're going to diagnose you when you go to where you're supposed to go. She told me that they do a Q-tip test and they figure all the areas are in pain, all the different things. But she said, I'm not going to do a Q-tip test with you, a full-on thing with you. But she just said, look, like, I am just going to show you where the area is. And so she did touch one point. She said, I'm just going to touch one point because I want you to see for yourself that this is the area, the culprit of your pain. She went and she didn't even put hardly any pressure, just touched the tiniest bit with a Q-tip, and it burned so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. She was like, yep, that's what I thought. And I said, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Let me tell you, it's so confusing for the mind to make sense of where pain is coming from if you don't visually see where it's coming from. When I was talking to my OB-GYNs and was telling them my symptoms, I was telling them, like, it's pain, but it's not in the vagina. It's like the entrance. It's like kind of, it's kind of weird to explain all these different things. And now it all came to light and so much clarity was brought when she showed me on the little mirror with a Q-tip and then showed me this area that was being so problematic. I left that appointment, literally cried inside my car. I called my husband immediately and I was crying and I told him, we figured out what's going on. And it was the greatest day ever. Surprisingly, I actually don't remember the exact date, but I do know it was July of 2025. I had also learned from Jandra that diagnosing vestibulodynia with the Q-tip methodology, the Q-tip test, is not in the formalized education of OB-GYNs. Let me say it again. It is not in the formalized education for OB-GYNs. OB-GYNs get told about vulvodynia, and they're not really told necessarily how to treat it. But unless you see an OB-GYN that is specialized in this issue and specifically took the extra time to study this issue, your OB-GYN will most likely not even know how to diagnose this unless you show up to the appointment yourself and you go, this is what's going on. It might become a part of the education, but is not right now. And the reason why I know that is because Jandra was telling me that she literally goes on different trips, like business trips, with these other colleagues that are also researching this condition to go educate OB-GYNs and teach them how to do the very easy and simple Q-tip test. And she said that it's so fascinating, but urologists surprisingly actually know way more about these sort of issues than OB-GYNs do. You normally think of a urologist as someone who deals with male surgeries, but they actually know a lot about bladder issues, anything that has to do with bladder, urethra, all that interconnectedness. They actually know a lot about it. She told me about Dr. Irwin Goldstein. And so Dr. Irwin Goldstein is in San Diego. I have heard that there's an Andrew Goldstein on the East Coast that does stuff too. And I think he takes insurance. I could be wrong. Irwin Goldstein is out of pocket, unfortunately. But I know she had also told me about Alyssa Yee, and she right now works through Scripps. And so she does take insurance with Scripps, but my issue at the time was that I had Medi-Cal, and Scripps does not let you pay out of pocket if you are on Medi-Cal, no matter what. So that's a little side note, by the way, if in case you didn't know that, and if you somehow, for whatever reason, also have Medi-Cal, they don't let you pay out of pocket at Scripps if you are someone who has Medi-Cal. That wasn't really an option for me to see her. Also, her wait list was so long. I know that some people definitely have the experience where they were on the wait list and they just kept calling a ton and hopped onto cancellations. So you could get lucky on that. Personally, by the time I got this diagnosis, I literally, after my PT appointment, cried in the parking lot like tears of joy. So I just wanted to move forward. But that was basically how I ended up at Dr. Goldstein's office and ended up going through different treatments with him, and how I ended up basically landing on the need for a vestibulectomy. I don't want to keep going because I don't want this video to get way too long and then you have to sit here listening to a really long video. I am going to make a separate video very soon on my Dr. Goldstein appointment and everything that happened there, and really break down the different causes of vestibulodynia. But if you want to get ahead on information, you can totally buy When Sex Hurts. I'm not sponsored. I don't get any money from this, but it really helped the explanation of everything. I would look at chapter 7 specifically, which is called When Every Touch Hurts Provokes Vestibulodynia. In chapter 8 too, they also talk about vulvodynia. So if you're seeing this and you're like, I don't think it's vestibulodynia, but I think could be vulvodynia, this whole book honestly covers a ton of those different chronic issues. All to say, again, another video will come with the more elaborate breakdown of what that appointment was like. I basically ended up landing on vestibulectomy as what ended up needing to happen for me. And I'm not saying that that's everyone's answer, but it's pretty well researched that it's a really effective treatment that's way more permanent than symptom management. And so more in the next video about that. Again, if you're going through this right now, if you are in the process of getting diagnosed, again, I cannot say enough how much I am so sorry that you are going through something so painful and so discouraging as this condition, because it is not fun at all. And I just want you to know that I am here with you in that. And I know I'm on the other side of a vestibulectomy, but also I am very, very aware, and it's very fresh in my memory what it was like pre-surgery. And I do not wish that on anyone. And I hope that you find healing, and I hope that you find the answers that you need. I hope that my video makes you feel very seen. I really hope that when you see my video, you go, oh my gosh, this is what's been going on. Please, by all means, you don't have to wait for my next video. Do your research on, again, acquired neuroproliferative vestibulodynia. Do your research on it. Definitely figure out if that's you and get the help that you need. Like I said, Alyssa Yee, Dr. Goldstein, there's got to be others too, but definitely get someone that's really experienced in this condition so that you can get the help and the answers that you need and get treated. This is so disappointing, discouraging, debilitating. It's so hard to burn while you pee. It's hard to burn when you wipe. It's hard to burn when you wear jeans, right? This is even just greater than intercourse. This is a quality of life issue. And so I want you to know that it is so valid to be feeling so deeply frustrated and discouraged and upset and sad, honestly, about life, because this really affects your quality of life tremendously. And let me know in the comments below Any questions you have about my story specifically, if you want more follow-up on that, I'm definitely, like I said, I'm gonna make another video. This is just the beginning of this Vestibulodynia series. There's gonna be more videos. I will definitely be breaking up my Dr. Goldstein appointment, how I landed on vestibulectomy as the answer for my treatment. I'm gonna explain vestibulodynia much more detailed than I did just now in this video, and I'm gonna make follow-up videos about the pre-op preparation, the surgery process, the PT process, all the things. I promise you, I will cover everything. That's the point of my channel, is before you go through it, right? And I'm trying to help you feel like you know what you're getting into before you go through something like this. Even if you're not going through this yourself, even as a woman, it's so important to know these things, because you could have a friend in your life and someone close to you that is going through something like this and doesn't have answers yet, and you could very much be the person to deliver these answers. Thank you for watching until the end. I know it was really, really long. I just hope and pray that you find answers and you find peace, and I just want to bring awareness to this issue. I'll see you in the next video, and until next time, bye.